As for the profile of the onshore business, is that domestic currency business or is that US dollars? And how easy is it to build a domestic deposit business?
It's a bit of both, domestic and foreign currency. Building local currency deposits is not easy. Any new entrant into a market always finds time to actually build the relationships.
Is that because of competition? Or
you've got well-established local banks,
right,
and you need to convince them that they need to shift their deposits across. But it is happening progressively. Some of the institutions have got government deposits. They're dealing with their high net worth individuals and their corporates, so they're growing their businesses progressively.
How much incentives are there in place to help them keep moving on and growing that business?
The major incentive we offer is the legal and regulatory platform that we offer. We don't go involved in sort of giving specific training incentives or tax breaks or rent subsidies or anything like that. The government's vision was always to provide the best of breed environment for firms to operate from, but they then need to make their own commercial decisions and develop their own businesses. We're very supportive of firms coming in, helping them get their staff on the ground, getting their residency issues sorted out, office accommodation, residential accommodation. We're very supportive of firms being introduced to potential parties in the country to deal with, but then we leave the firms themselves to get on with growing their own businesses the best way they can.
It sounds to me like you're trying to build a sustainable model rather than a fast developing model. Tell us a little bit about the economy of Qatar itself. What is it based on? And when international reports say that your GDP growth is 9%, what does that mean on the ground? What's actually happening on the ground?
The economy, like a lot of the Gulf economies, is heavily dependent upon hydrocarbons. In the past, that was oil. The country has about the world's 12th largest supplies of oil. But over the last 15 years, they've been developing these liquefied natural gas reserves, which involve the expenditure of billions of dollars on building gas trains, ports, ships to carry the gas around, regasification facilities in the receiving countries. That is now starting to come through to fruition, where exports this year are going from about 32 million tonnes to 63 million tonnes of LNG per annum. But what that has meant is there's been massive infrastructure development by the country in building the basics for the future: power station, water desalination plants, roads, hospitals, schools. And then the private sector has got involved with building office construction, developments, housing developments, and then the trading economy is developing following that. So the country has gone over the last 10 years, in effect, from a GDP of less than $8 billion to $100 billion. The population's gone from less than 400,000 to about 1.6 million people. So all of that needs, as I said, housing, schooling, motor vehicles, recreation facilities, and all of that's developing and helping to diversify the economy away from its dependence upon hydrocarbons.
How is Qatar dealing with the current global economic crisis? And what is it learning from the experience of the other jurisdictions in the Middle East and the mistakes that they have been making? And will we see that Qatar will not make the same mistakes in terms of expectations of the speed of growth that you're talking about?
I think Qatar has always looked very cautiously at what's going on around it and further afield. It has strong relationships with governments from all corners of the globe, and I think in developing its economy, it has taken a more cautious approach. It doesn't wish to overexceed itself in one particular area. It is also quite keen to ensure that future generations are well looked after, and so not sort of take this wealth and squander it, which is why they're so keen to develop education and those sorts of initiatives. It would be fair to say that all the countries in the Gulf will suffer to a certain extent from the downturn. It would be hard for anyone to be immune to what's going on globally, but the banks within Qatar are well capitalized, well run. We have a very sound central bank in the Qatar Central Bank, which supervises these banks, and so the banks themselves are very robust. But the organisation, the central bank governors across the region, also share information and cooperate on a GCC-wide basis. And so I think there's a lot of experience being shared there about what's gone right and what's not gone right in certain other jurisdictions.
In terms of the interest that you are seeing coming from the different parts of the world, the North America, Europe, Asia, and maybe Latin America, where are the biggest interests coming from in terms of engaging with Qatar, and what do you think is the reason why they're engaging?
In developing the QFC, we've tried to look at where there's strong political and trade and economic links, because financial institutions generally follow where their customers are and where the business flows are happening. So we focused on those countries where Qatar has strong relationships. More recently, we're seeing interest from China, from Japan, and from Southeast Asia, where there's growing trade and economic ties. The European and US-based institutions already had strong relationships with Qatar institutions, and therefore they found it fairly straightforward to accept the proposition and put people on the ground. And so we're now seeing, sort of, as I said, sort of more of an Asian focus on what's going on, and we're now starting to see more interest on the asset management side. The financial institutions we have cover most geographies and most product ranges from the banking sector, and now the asset management industry is starting to do.
Right.